let's start with the West, because it is. I mean, in many ways, I know some people were hoping, Embiid versus Jokic in the finals, the guys who won the MVP, perhaps one who should have won it. Instead, we get, in the West anyway, prior to not getting that now in the finals, we still get a phenomenally interesting matchup between Jokic and Anthony Davis. The Lakers, who just really looked fantastic against both the Grizzlies and the Warriors. In many ways, those two series sort of played out the same way, the trajectory of both. The Nuggets are minus 155, minus 145 favorite, we're saying. Somewhere in that pocket. Shop around, of course. Do you believe that generally to be right?
I do. I think they've earned that designation. I think they were a team that was really underrated, by me included, coming into these playoffs. I think they were the team that I think we thought would kind of play out the string, much like the 76ers did, right? I mean, the way people talked about Jokic was, yeah, okay, he could do this in the regular season, but, come playoff time, they always find a way to flame out. And, instead, he's the guy putting up 53 points in meaningful games in round two to take care of Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns in 6 games. Well, the guy who actually won the MVP, came out with one of his worst playoff games of all time in a game 7 in which his team was down 30 in the second half. So I've kind of done a complete 180 on Denver. I think they have been wire to wire through 2 rounds now, the best team in the playoffs. And that includes Boston. And I get why Boston is so heavily favored against Miami, and they're so heavily favored to win the title given the path that they have. But we saw Boston struggle a couple of times in some really concerning spots in round 1 against Atlanta. Obviously, they fall behind 3-2 against Philly. I didn't think they played well enough to win that game 6 in Philadelphia. Luckily, the Sixers just somehow managed to play even worse. But Denver, to me, is the one team that has not really had any of those, like, oh my goodness, what's going on here type of performances. Like, obviously, they've lost a few games. They dropped 1 to Minnesota. They dropped 2 to the Phoenix Suns. But I haven't really had any significant concerns about how this team is running so far. So I think they deserve to be the favorites over the Lakers. The question for me, and it's been the question throughout these playoffs, is do we get anything close to the version of LeBron that we saw before the foot injury? And look, game 6 the other night against the Warriors, I think that was his single best individual game of the playoffs.
Yeah.
If he brings that level of intensity and effort and attacking the rim early throughout this series against Denver, then the Lakers could absolutely win. But if we're seeing the more tentative LeBron, the LeBron who's fumbling the ball in transition, just doesn't quite look as confident. I mean, that was his first 30-point game of the playoffs, guys. In game 6. That's crazy for LeBron to go that many games without a 30-pointer. I don't know that they can rely on Rui Hachimura and Austin Reeves and Lonnie Walker to be the guys carrying them against Denver. They're going to need a better overall series from LeBron.
Did you do anything with game 1? Nuggets favored by 5.5. The total's 222.5.
Yeah, I'm shopping around. I'm going to stay away from that line. Traditionally, having watched like every LeBron playoff game of the last 15 years, it's like game 1 always feels like a feel out for LeBron. And more often than not, the Lakers or the Cavs or whoever it is, the Heat come out slowly, but they've won 2 game 1s on the road so far in these playoffs. So I don't think we can discount the possibility that they come in focused. Obviously, it's the Western Conference Finals. They better be locked in. So I'm staying away from the line. I'm looking at the series exact outcomes over at the DK Sportsbook. Nuggets in 6 is at plus 550, which I could see that happening. Obviously, they would have to win a game 6 at LA, but I think that's doable. I like getting that at almost 6-1. If you like the Lakers to win this series, you could get Lakers in 7 at 6-1. And again, that would require them to win a game 7 on the road. But we've seen the Lakers come up in those spots already in these playoffs. So, those are 2 things that I'm looking at right now. I mean, I like Denver as like -2 on the first quarter line tomorrow night. I do think they'll come out strongly at home. We'll see if the Lakers are able to kind of be resilient there. I'm just curious, guys, to see how the Lakers defend the Denver Nuggets. And the bigger question for me is, can Anthony Davis stay out of foul trouble? I think his defense has been the biggest story for the Lakers in these playoffs. But the way that they used him against Golden State, that the Warriors don't really put pressure on the rim, if he's going to be asked to match up in more of a true one-on-one situation against Jokic, I think it's a really tough ask to do that for 40 minutes. Also, give 20 to 25 points on offense and stay out of foul trouble.
Let me try it this way. If I came to you from the future after this series was over and I said, oh man, one of these teams crushed the others. And what I mean by that is it was either a sweep or it was a gentleman's sweep. So it didn't even go past 5 games. Which is the team more likely to have won a blowout series? Because would it be Davis just absolutely exerting himself, and then Mike Malone's Denver bench, being as tight as it was, just wouldn't be able to sustain over a period of time. Like they finally got exhausted, let's say. Or would it be Jokic just being Jokic, and it's just there is no answer for defending this guy. He is a unicorn. What's the answer?
I think it's more the latter. I would be surprised if this is like a true blowout series in either direction, barring any injuries. But I think it's slightly more likely that Denver is the team that could accomplish that, partially because they're the better three-point shooting team by a lot in these playoffs. I mean, the Lakers are hovering at like 31, 32%. Denver's up closer to 37, 38%. I mean, not only can Jokic shoot the three, which is something that Anthony Davis doesn't really offer, but I mean, Jamal Murray is close to an elite three-point shooter. Michael Porter Jr., I think will be, given the way that Klay Thompson played in round two, I think Michael Porter Jr. might be more of a problem for the Lakers than even Klay was. So to me, Denver is that team that, they could come out with two hot shooting games at home, jump out to a 2-0 lead, take one in LA, and then finish it out in five. I think you could see that scenario playing out. And, talking about Jokic, I just think he's reached the point that a lot of like ultra elite players get to where, like, even his bad games, he's still going to give you like 28 and 13, right? Like, I don't think there is a shutting down of Nikola Jokic. I think Anthony Davis could guard him really well, and he's still going to get his on every given night. So it gives Denver such a high floor.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.